Okay, everybody, welcome to Good Day, Good Health. Today we have a special guest, Dr. Edward Williams, who is a good friend of mine, and he is a genius. He's come up with a lot of great technology to help us in our daily lives. And before we get into all that, I would just like to get you, Doc, to describe your journey from a young person to now being the mature super genius that you are.
Well, thanks for giving me this opportunity, Ed. I'm from Philadelphia, went to school at John Bartram, attended Central State University in Wilberforce, Ohio. And then after that, I entered Temple University School of Dentistry. I was the only black student in the school at that time. However, I got a good education. And I have enjoyed the profession of dentistry from that time on. My concern, however, has always been what happens when we have head impacts. And how did I get into that? Well, I just never would accept the concept of how they begin to treat and study the impacts of concussions. And from that, it led me to look into skulls during the time that I was at Central State University, and begin to study some of the aspects of a concussion and what was generally understood to be the problems at that time. I never agreed with what they found in terms of the problems of concussions. So I stepped out on my own to explore what are the possibilities that I see. Now, it had helped me because I did play sports when I was in high school. I played football. And there was one time that I think I was pretty fast and I kind of wanted to move to the NFL, but things happened along the line. But I had a nice run. I was a halfback, had a nice run, and I was hit from a blind side. And when I went down, not knowing it, and after all of the pile dissipated, I looked up and the sky was gray. And, you know, I was like very much concerned about that. So by the time I got home, my mother and aunt was there. And I asked them, I said, I guess you folks are ready to get to the car and get an umbrella. It looked like it was going to rain out there. Well, it was a very hot day. And they said, rain with all that sun out. That's when I began to try to figure what happened to me there. And as I began to study the impact forces, I knew at that time I had had a concussion. Nobody recognized simple concussions at that time. And what happened, when I had the concussion, or during the concussive activities, everything became gray. And the first sign of a concussion is loss of color vision. Now that's a mild concussion I sustained, but I never forgot that. So from that time, I was very much concerned about this whole aspect of concussions. Leaving Central State University leaving the dental school because of a dear dentist that worked with me in Howard University. He had asked me to attend a convention or an interview at Temple University. So when I got to the interview, my concern was not becoming a dentist. My concern was, I'm from Philadelphia, and going home was a delight. So why not? So when I got there, I was introduced to a gentleman called Dr. Bob Ellison. I didn't know Dr. Ellison from a can of paint. But I had scored very high in the dental aptitude examinations. And Bob Ellison stood up during the course of the interview and said to the dean, Dean, have you seen his DAT scores? And Dean said, yes. Bob Ellison out of nowhere said, I have been here for 5 years and watched you tear out of the heart of many black students wanting to come to this school of dentistry. He said, and I quote, if you don't accept him here on the spot, I want you to accept my resignation. I was shocked. Nobody ever stood up for me in my life to say something and put their life on a line like that. So at that time, I went home and told my mom, I said, Mom, I was glad to be home. I said, but I got to be a dentist. And she said, being a dentist, we knew nothing about. And I told her the story. And from that point on, I pursued my position in dental school. They called me that afternoon and said, we have a seat for you in the oncoming class of dentistry. And that's how I got into Temple University.
Wow, that's a powerful journey.
Yeah, it was a long journey.
It's a great journey, a great example
Yeah.
too, and proud to know you, sir. You've accomplished so many things in your career, and the specialty towards concussion. Now I see where you got that fire, that desire to find out the cause, and the treatment as well. Now, when the average person thinks about a concussion, of course, they think about football or boxing, but when you talk about the results of what happens in that TMJ circle that you've coined, uh, let's talk about some other things that could affect your body, affect your way of life, that are not necessarily from a severe concussion, but from other instances that could represent the impact of running, working out, different things that cause pressure in that area. Could you describe that?
Well, we have never looked at what happens when we exercise. One of the first things we exercise and we do is clench our teeth. And we clench our teeth, and that gives us what we call a mechanism of strength. Now, when we clench the teeth for that strength, we put forces here in the joint. And as you increase the stress of that joint, you begin to diminish or activate or injure the little bones that support the base of the brain called the temporal lobe. And the more you activate this stress mechanism or this clenching mechanism, the more damage ensues in terms of this joint. We have looked at concussions in all kinds of ways. One way we've looked at concussions, we don't recognize it to be a concussion, but a knockout in boxing. Boxers know if they get hit here on the sweet spot of the chin, it can knock them out. Why? It sends two components of force on either side directly into the base of the brain. They call that a knockout. The knockout is a concussion. We have classified aspects of brain and base of the brain injuries in different terms. A knockout is a concussion. A G-force loss of consciousness, or G-lock in aviation, is a concussion. And we can go on and on with different aspects of concussions that have had different names to qualify the event that's taking place in the same area, the base of the skull.
I have a question for you.
Certainly.
So what is the reason that the medical industry has not focused on that for so long? I know there's been so many different circumstances where medicine focuses on a particular causality for a disease or for an event, but then later they find out that that was incorrect. You know, we talk about cholesterol and diabetes and different things that the understanding has grown, so the understanding has changed for the causes. So when we think about concussions and TMJ injuries, I see you're focusing on the TMJ area. A lot of times I heard people talk about the head bouncing around, the brain bouncing around in the skull. Tell us how the focus has been misdirected and how you're trying to change that.
Well, and I think that was the problem there. Everybody in research prior to this focused on what happens to the brain with the impacts for a concussion. And it was thought that the brain rotated in the skull. Now, the brain is attached to the bones of the skull with a very thick and dense membrane attachment. So if the brain rotated in the skull, we would see evidence of that attachment tearing, vessels that would have broken or stripped, and capillary beds that were not in place. So if the brain did tear away from the skull, how does it reattach? Do we walk around from that point on with the brain wobbling in the skull? No, it does not attach like that. The most direct way of that impact energy from the concussive forces getting into the skull is through this delicate joint. The temporal lobe of the brain sits right upon the jaw joint structure, and it's the path of least resistance for that energy to tag and hit that delicate area of the temporal lobe. And that's why we have all these temporal mandibular joint problems, TMJ, TMJD, et cetera, and et cetera. And the result of the concussion ends up with some kind of temporal mandibular joint disorder. So it says it's in this temporal mandibular joint that we have the problem, but no one has ever looked to that area to try to ascertain why is there a problem there. And
And also, that's a delicate area of the brain. When you look at, I know you worked with sports organizations in the past, and even with the NFL, they have CTE. They have different things that affect the brain from different sports, from people being hit continuously. I believe you worked with Muhammad Ali as well. Can you talk about that?
Muhammad Ali was a character of a gentle human being. We have the idea he was this guy but he was a gentle giant. It was a pleasure having the opportunity to work with Muhammad Ali. He had a great sense of humor. He was a patient that was scared of dentists. So I took my advantage. I would punch him once in a while, and he would dare not to hit me back. So I had a great time, and he also did in terms of working with Muhammad Ali. And what we did is we created several appliances that he would wear that would take the stress off of the joint and remove the headaches. He called me back one time and said, Doc, I walked 2 miles with your appliance, and I wasn't able to walk a quarter of a mile before. And what happens, it took the pressure off of the injury site and gave him the release and strength to do what he said he did. And that's how the appliance works.
We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about that appliance, and we're going to talk about the patent and the designs that you put together to kind of alleviate the opportunity to have a concussion. And we'll be right back in 1 minute. Okay, welcome back, everyone, to Good Day, Good Health. We're here with Dr. Edward Williams. And when we left off, we were talking about a particular device that was developed by the doctor. And what leads into that is over the years, we've seen how in sports you may wear a helmet, hockey, football, helmet that is there to protect the brain. But in essence, there's some problems with it in the way it's designed. One part is the chin strap. And tell us about that, Doc. Tell us about how that is actually a problem and how you came up with your resolution.
Well, in the design of helmets, there has to be some type of way to retain the helmet on the head. They have created what we call a 4-point chin strap constraining apparatus. So the chin strap actually is placed upon the button of the chin, and there are 4 straps to the side. Now, putting that helmet in position does one thing. It takes and pulls the joints higher or up into the delicate skull area, where they encroach more upon the joint structure. And it's called chin strap constraint or helmet chin strap constraint. We've never considered what that is doing. That's why many people in sports take those helmets off. They cannot have a chin cup pulling that helmet up into the base of the skull without having discomfort or pain. So we have to look at, again, how this affects that joint called the temporal mandibular joint. We've never put any consideration to that. So the helmets, though they are designed to prevent skull fractures, are agitating the potential for the concussion through chin strap constraints.
So your device that you've designed has kind of alleviated that problem. It almost makes it impossible. I guess nothing's impossible, but it highly reduces the opportunity for concussion from the impact from a hit to the chin. Tell us
Okay.
about that and how you developed that.
The thought was, how do I get this joint structure into a safe way where I can eliminate the impact forces being directed or dealt directly into the joint structure? I've invented something called the JRES. Let's talk about what the JRES is. The JRES is a device which, if you can see it, it has an upper and a lower bite canal. So that means the teeth of the upper go into this canal, and the teeth of the lower goes in here, in the lower canal. So if I turn it this way, you can see upper and lower teeth canals. Okay? Now, what that does in placing that in the mouth, the important part of what it does, it brings the lower jaw forward so that it aligns itself with the upper teeth. Watch how I insert it. Okay, I can talk, I can breathe, and spit. Plus it gives me, because I've taken the joints and pulled them forward, it can no longer let that lower condyle slap into the base of the skull, hence preventing concussions. Keep the force out of the base of the temporal lobe and you prevent concussions. Might sound simple, but it is, and it actually works that way.
Well, you know, most of the time the solution is simple. The technology is complex, but the solution basically is remove the opportunity for that condyle to slam into that joint, right? And
Absolutely.
it eliminates the opportunity for that impact to cause damage to the brain.
And see, this part of the brain is the most receptive and easiest part to get that energy into the brain through this joint structure. So if I take the ability for that impact energy to go into that joint structure at the base of the brain, I remove the whole factor of a concussion.
Wow.
Preventing concussion, protecting the jaw joint structure prevents the concussion.
Now I have a question. So
Two.
let's say I'm a parent. I have a child who is in sports growing up, a young child. I want to protect that child from brain injury because that's a concern lately. You see a lot of parents around the country, they're taking their kids out of football, taking them out of contact sports because of that fear. You know, the fear of what we've heard that happens to football players as they get older, the damage to the brain. What would be the solution for that parent? How would they obtain this device? And once you have it, is it a custom device? Is it something they could do themselves, or do they have to come in to be fitted?
Well, we've developed a way that they can fit them themselves. And the case that comes with that has a mirror in it. Okay? So the reason we want a mirror, so when you put the lower teeth in first, then what you do, look in the mirror until the upper teeth align itself with the lower teeth, or the lower, aligns itself with the upper channel. So I put in the lower first, and then bring the jaw forward. And there you go. We can talk and communicate with the clients. So all of this is part of what we do in bringing people in or sending them to folks outside of our range.
Okay. Now, I want to inform our audience that this appliance has multiple uses. You know how something is designed for a particular purpose, and then you find out, wow, there's all these extra benefits to having this device. Can you name a few?
I'm going to go over my little chart here. It prevents the TMJ fractures of concussions. It mitigates the blast injury of concussions in the military. It enhances strength in training and physical endurance while undergoing physical therapy. It promotes helmet balance so they can wear in the military various appliances on the helmet. It suppresses the pain of helmet chin strap constraints. It, in recoil and blast, it mitigates the forces that are transmitted to the joint structures. The airway space increases breathing capability and articulated speech while it reduces fatigue. Teeth clenching while breathing through the mouth enhances strength. If you see a lot of persons lifting and constantly clenching, well, that clenching is a mechanism to increase strength. Because they have done it so many times, they've also damaged the joints, which decreases their ability to increase the strength level. But this reestablishes the strength that they should have upon clenching. It mitigates the migraines that are usually part of exertion. It increases self-reliance under pressure. It also can be used for sleep apnea to reduce the sounds of snoring. It protects the teeth and the TMJ while it disables speech. It mitigates blunt concussive forces with the various helmets used in the military. It enables the protection and strength, preventing TMJDs during training and field operations. And there's other applicable aspects of it that we could go into. But these are some of the primary things that the JRES actually prevents and does.
So in practical applications for the everyday consumer, okay, I could sleep with it to reduce snoring, okay? When going to the gym, working out, it would assist me in achieving more strength when lifting and doing exercises, right? It could also reduce the opportunity for headaches, things of that nature. And you may wonder where those headaches are coming from, but it may be from running on concrete, doing things of that nature. And by having a device...
Or the stress against the jaw when doing exercise, because we're constantly clenching.
Exactly. Even driving. I know there's situations when you could be watching a movie and clench your teeth. You're waiting for that climax. What's going to happen? You know, there's so many opportunities where we build that pressure up, and then later on we're wondering, why do I have a headache? Right?
Absolutely.
So it's very versatile as a device to alleviate a lot of those symptoms. But if I am an athlete, I think that it's a perfect device to work with in different situations. If I have snoring issues, which I'm not going to say if I have snoring issues, but
you might have a problem there,
but that's awesome. And that's a great thing to have a device that could work in so many different situations. So, Doc, tell us, how would they be able to get that device? Do you have a website? Do you have a contact information?
There's a number, 215-242-3141. There's also a website that they can get us at.
Jaw Joint Science Institute.
Okay, at as you see down there, jawjointscienceinstitute.org.
Perfect. And we want to encourage everyone to visit the website, reach out to Dr. Williams, and even talk to him about some specific situations you may have. He's a great person, great to work with in person. Oh, one more thing, Doc. You're located in where? Philadelphia?
We're located in Philadelphia at 7700 Crittenton, Criddenten Street, Philadelphia, PA 19118. And you can get us there There's a dental care and dental implant center that you'll see. And there are several banners that represent us.
Great. Thank you, Doc. We want to thank you for coming on today, giving us some information about concussions, the TMJ circle, the J-Res. Great information that we're going to continue to let everyone know about. And we'll even have you back on a forum to talk about those things where we can have some of our viewers and listeners participate, and maybe they can give you some questions in person and find some more things about what you're doing. So thanks.
That would be delightful, and I look forward to that. Thank you, Ed Groves.
Thank you, sir.